How do you know? And this is the $50 million question. This is going to be the basis for what we're going to talk about now. And hopefully the answer is you don't, because that's going to ruin the rest of the rest of your interview is going to be 4 minutes long otherwise. Julio, how do you know when something you're doing in social is actually adding revenue to your bottom line as a salesperson? How do you track that you shared a piece of content and then that person reappears 6 months later and they want to buy from you? Is there a way to track all that? And honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. And so, what are your thoughts on that?
Hey, that's the holy grail question that everybody's asking today in the marketplace. I get the same one each and every time. And this is definitely not a sales pitch by any means, but that's what we're doing at our factor. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to provide an environment where marketing can put a piece of content in. That content goes out to the appropriate salespeople. When they share it out, everything is tracked and tagged so that if somebody clicks on that link that you shared, then they ultimately have a little flag that they carry with them when they go over to your website, your landing page, etc., and fill in that information. Then you essentially have tag that individual as coming from your message. Now it's key to make sure that in your CRM system, whatever one you're using, that lead source is attributed to social. So whether it's that way, a lot of people are doing it manually. If they have an engagement on LinkedIn or Twitter, what they're doing is then going into CRM, putting that in. And that's something, again, that we're trying to bridge at our factor, is making sure that anytime somebody engages with you, you can add them directly from our platform to the CRM system and have that tracked as a lead source back to social. So at the end of the day, sales leadership can look at that and they can say, wow, we just put in 25 leads this month as a result of social. Look at our pipeline as a result of social. So it's making sure that there's a bridge between your activities and to your standard CRM reporting. And I think making sure that you have that bridge is going to tell you and the sales leaders at your organization how well social is performing. Is it worth it? Is it influencing any of the buyers at all? So I think that's a first step, is at least logging things and understanding if there's even any impact at all. And I suspect you will see a ton of impact, but hey, I can't speak for everybody.
Awesome. And that's what I'm intrigued about, because I get a lot of emails. So I get between 50 and 100 emails a day from listeners and fans, and I appreciate everyone who's sending emails in, but I commonly get the same emails. One of which is, my sales manager is an arsehole. He will not listen to me. I've tried social selling. I can prove that it works. Yada, yada, yada. So then my immediate response is, well, they're a sales manager for a reason. Generally they've been promoted to that position. What evidence do you really have that what you're doing is more effective than the 20 phone calls they're asking you to make every day? And the response is, well, I spoke to this one dude, and then a month later I closed a deal with someone at his company, and it's all a bit wishy-washy. So you said the holy grail then. Is this something that obviously our factor are working on, which is interesting? Is this something that a salesperson needs to implement? Can an individual do this? Or is this something that a whole company, team, marketing, sales, and leadership need to be on board with to actually track revenues with social selling?
So I think what an individual salesperson can do just to get the ball rolling is, it may be a little bit manual, but there's a few kind of levers that you can kind of look at and point to, that's going to drive it home with sales managers or leadership. They're concerned about only very, very few things. And, it's generally revenue, what's coming in the door, how quick is the sales cycle moving, etc. So as a salesperson, you need to be able to provide a business case to be able to push that forward. And the business cases that I've seen work has been to sit down and look at some of the accounts that you've been working on and maybe do a couple with social selling and some without. And at the end of the day, looking back at it to see, how quick was the sales cycle with social involved versus how quick was it without social involved. And what you're going to see, and I hope, and if you're doing it right, you're going to see much more accelerated results with social, because now all of a sudden those dark periods that existed within a traditional sales process between email, phone are now removed, and you're micro touching your
Mm.
buyers and prospects on a regular basis each and every day. So you're going to see acceleration, whether it's moving it out to a closed lost or hopefully moving it into a closed one. Regardless, you're going to see accelerated results. So I think that, and then just making sure that you do capture where your attribution of leads is coming from. And if it is coming from LinkedIn or wherever, and your sales managers or leadership have not put that into the CRM as a lead source yet, then you have to do that on your own manually, track it in a spreadsheet or a document or whatever that is. And when you see success, present it to leadership. And that's how I've seen things kind of bubble up from the ground level.
Final one on this before we run through some questions that we ask everyone that comes on the show. Should salespeople, so your position is VP of Marketing, is that right?
It
So
is, yes.
you're gonna have a different insight on this than what the VP of Sales and that comes on the show, what they suggest. But should salespeople be creating content or purely sharing other people's content and curating it?
Mm. See, that's a question again, and I love to answer it because a lot of people today are curating their own content. They're sharing it out. And what I find is that's a disaster, unless you're kind of like the top kind of 5%, right? That really knows what they're doing. For me, how I kind of came to be is I had a marketing and a sales background. So I had both of those things working together. So I inherently knew each piece of content that I was curating and sharing out had to be in line with my company's overall strategy. It had to not talk about competitors, and it had to follow a number of guidelines that fit. Like if I'm going to share it to this individual, what part of the sales process are they in, and which piece of content do I need to share to push them over the status quo, and keep them moving along with us down the funnel. Now, most salespeople don't think that way. So what I would say is marketing really should be involved for a little bit of help there, and they need to really be able to provide the content that is in line with strategy. Because let's face it, salespeople need to focus their time on high value selling activities, and curating content is not a high value selling activity. Getting them on the phone and pushing them along is an extremely high value selling activity. So if they can get a little bit of help, have the content there, have it tagged, where to share it to what LinkedIn group or hashtag, what part of the sales process it's for, so that if it's late stage funnel, like it might be social proof or a case study, then that should be tagged. So if you have somebody that's moving down the funnel, share that case study to them, share it to them via direct message on LinkedIn or tag them on Twitter. And if salespeople do think that way, then I would say, hey, go ahead. But right now, I think keep that aside and let somebody who is in charge of driving that home across the entire gamut of folks, different lines of businesses, different geographies, whatever that looks like for your company, and take that out of the salesperson's hands and just let them do what they're meant to do and what they're good at doing.